You had stuff rolling, Shane? You had banners on top of banners on top of banners?
I had banners going. I saw where there were some comments. What's this button do?
What are you putting
I am
up?
live. View on Facebook. What's that do?
You get to view it
on Facebook.
Wait, is that what happened last time? Were you just clicking around and then everything went to shit?
No. You hit end broadcast.
I might have. I don't even know. But I mean, the phone was down. I had the phone down. All right,
So
let's
anyway,
do this.
I'm gonna be out the next 2 weeks. So because next week I'm gonna be partying, as old folks do, on a Wednesday evening.
What are you partying with on a Wednesday evening?
Larry Monkey, Run DFF. Rocky Dennis.
Rocky.
I think a few more folks. We're doing a little Sal Lito might show up. We're doing a little South Jersey, Philadelphia area meetup because Run DFF is coming up from Mississippi after the Boston Marathon. He's running the Boston Marathon.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm jealous. All right, you guys ready to kick the show off? We've already wasted a ton of time.
Let's go.
Wait, why is this up on the screen, Shane?
This is Fantasy Intervention. Now here to intervene with your fantasy life, Shane Manila, Jacob Sanderson, and Chase Vernon.
What's up, everybody? Welcome on in. Welcome on in to another episode of Fantasy Intervention. Sorry about the technical difficulties.
We're good now.
I don't even know what happened today. We are breaking down some of these rookie tiers and what you guys should expect from this rookie class. So, of course, we have different expectations from different rookies, but at the same time, you can feel comfortable taking some guys within the same range. So we want to break down what the ranges are, let you guys know who we're looking at prior to the draft, and kind of dive into, some of these, I guess, upside versus floor type players, and which ones you want for your fantasy teams. I am joined tonight by @ShaneIsTheWorst. Shane, you are the worst over there on Twitter. You guys can go check him out. And of course, @FFRTDB, Jacob, my man. Jacob's missed past 2 weeks, but he is back at it with us. We're excited to have you, man.
I'm excited to be back, man. I love you guys on Wednesdays. It's just, we had a scheduling thing 2 weeks ago with the guest, and then last time with work, but now we're back. We're good, and I even get 1 week with Shane before he goes on his hiatus, and then we'll all be back together for the most content-rich part of the season, June.
I love it. I mean, that is the best time of the year. Of course. No, I mean, we should be back right after the draft. I mean, that's going to be exciting, of course. That's what we're here to talk about, right? So, Shane, you're going to be back for the first week following the draft, correct?
Yeah, it's just the Wednesday night before the draft. I'll be recording HQ because Michael Sipes, his old ass, will be out at the draft.
I might be in the air on that Wednesday, so that there might not be a show that Wednesday.
I'm going solo. I will
100% be there next week with you, Jake.
Oh my God! All right, let's go ahead and jump into this episode.
Do it, man.
Let's start out with the first tier.
Tiers, baby.
Let's start with this top tier because if we're talking about Superflex, right? We have the 101. Josh over here brings it up. You got the 101 of the 2022 fantasy draft. Who are you taking? And if it's not Superflex, it's pretty obvious. If it is Superflex, for me, it's still obvious. And I only have one guy ranked in that top tier for myself, and it's going to be Breece Hall. I mean, Breece Hall is an absolute monster. I actually did a little video today that I cannot wait to release. I'll probably put it out on like Friday-ish. But it's me just going through how 16 teams in the NFL could actually end up with Breece Hall. So I know that sounds a little bit shocking. It's like, dude, how could 16 teams draft a running back? But honestly, like, I feel like that's where we're at with the NFL and these rookies. So let's hop over down to Jacob first, since he's missed so much time down there. And let's talk a little bit about some of these rookies.
Yeah.
And, you know, do you agree, first off, that Breece Hall could be the 101, that he is in his own tier, that, you know, he could end up with multiple different teams?
Man, I don't agree with in his own tier. I think Malik Willis, assuming that he gets the draft capital he's supposed to get, and he's currently minus 350 to go in the top 10. So if you even extend that out to top 15, he's probably laying minus 500, minus 600, which means he's going to go in the top 15 of the draft. It would be quite surprising if he does not. And I think if he does, he belongs in the tier with Breece. I have the 101 in 4 leagues, and I currently plan to take Malik in 2 and Breece in 2. So that's kind of where I'm at. I see them similarly. I think it depends on your league settings. It depends on your league situation. Like one league, I have the 101, and my quarterbacks are Kyler Murray and Trey Lance. I don't need to take Malik Willis, but I basically don't have running backs. I have Akers, A.J. Dillon, and Penny, I think. So Breece Hall gives me a lot more impact there. Yeah, I think especially if you're in smaller leagues, 10-team leagues, maybe, or half PPR, standard scoring leagues, that kind of thing, where the running back has that really high value. That's where I think Breece Hall maybe gets into a tier of his own. But in like your standard triflex dynasty league, it's PPR, super flex. Like I think Willis deserves consideration. But I love Breece Hall. He checks every box. I don't know that he is as elite as his box checking profile states, just based off of where he's probably going to get drafted, some of the film concerns you occasionally hear, some of the more micro advanced rushing metrics. But I think he's really strong. I think he's close to that top 6, top 7 in dynasty.
And also, balls.
What did I say?
Balls is life. All right, Shane. I know that you took Malik Willis as the 101 in our 2 quarterback league draft that we had last week. Does that change for a super flex?
Yes, it does. It's going to be Breece Hall, most likely. I mean, yeah, Malik Willis is the 101 quarterback without a freaking doubt. But if I don't need a quarterback, I'm really not reaching for one here. So I don't want to say Breece Hall is in his own tier, but he kind of is. I mean, Malik Willis jumps into that tier if I need a quarterback, if I'm willing to gamble on him. The upside is immense for Malik Willis. It's Michael Vick-esque, not esque.
Why do you say that? Why do you say Michael Vick like esque? Because he does have rushing upside. He's a bigger guy than Michael Vick, but he can move really, really well.
He's got an arm that rivals Michael Vick's, and he can run like Michael Vick. So we need him to not turn the ball over like Michael Vick did. Not to. I don't know. We need him not to get hurt as much as Michael Vick did it towards the end of his career.
Yeah, and we need him to be nice to canines.
We need a couple things or not get caught. His upside is huge. His floor is awful.
I was just about to say, what's bigger, his upside or his floor?
I don't know.
Wide range of outcomes on Malik Willis.
Yeah, like it feels like Breece Hall's range of outcomes is running back 3 to running back 12, probably higher than that. Malik Willis's range of outcomes is quarterback 1 to unemployed in 2 years.
Yeah, so here's why I think the floor is like a little bit higher on Malik in a fantasy sense than I think it is in a real life sense.
Oh yeah.
So like I get what people say. Like for instance, when NFL draft analysts, right, who are talking about NFL real life football, I don't care about fantasy football, they say Malik Willis's range of outcomes is massive, high floor or high ceiling, low floor. I agree with all that. Like his passing production is a bit of a mess. He didn't start till 4th year. He did it at Liberty. He's below any meaningful threshold lines in pretty much any meaningful passing metric, from adjusted yards per attempt to QBR to PFF grades, all of it. It's not good. His rushing is great. His tools and traits are great. But yeah, that's pretty much where we're at with Malik. The reason why I don't think it's actually that low in fantasy is that rushing is the floor in fantasy football. You can really only be so bad in fantasy football as a quarterback if you run the ball with a high proclivity. And that's what Malik Willis is going to do. And you also see, 76% of starting quarterbacks, or 76% of quarterbacks drafted in the top 15, where, as we said, Malik Willis is going to go, they start for 3+ years. So you have a reasonable floor of 3 years. And at that point, it gives you at least a couple of years to watch him and say, okay, is this guy good, right? Or is this guy crap? And, maybe he's scoring you some fantasy points, but he looks bad and you have to sell at a slight loss. But I don't think this is a situation where it's overly likely that he's just falling to zero overnight. I think that you do have a little bit of a runway. So I think that he does have a bit of a floor built into him from like a dynasty game theory perspective that he doesn't in the NFL.
Yeah, but that floor, so that's tied directly to his fantasy is going to be tied directly to his NFL results, kind of like Jalen Hurts, right? Like Jalen Hurts bought himself another year last year, this year. But if Jalen Hurts were to go out and basically play the same as he did last year, you can pretty much guarantee that the Eagles are going to move on. You know what I mean? Like you have to see some progression there, or they're going to be like, look, it's great that you can run for 14 touchdowns. It's awesome that, you can go off script and do stuff. But if we can't win games because you're not even adequate as a passer, meh. So, but his upside, Willis, is quarterback 1. So I'm willing to risk it.
So and this is for me why Breece Hall's in the top tier. So I'll go into the second tier, right, where we do have the upside, of course, and for the second tier for me, it starts out with Malik Willis. But Malik Willis could end up in a situation where he's sitting behind a starting quarterback for a year, possibly 2, like we could see with Trey Lance. I don't think we will, but we could end up seeing with Trey Lance. We saw with Jordan Love, sitting behind Aaron Rodgers.
We're
if
not
he ends
going to
up
see
sitting
that with Trey Lance. He's going to play in week 1.
We'll see. We haven't.
No, there's not. Yeah, no, it's not. We'll see. He's playing in week 1. Don't be ridiculous.
Okay. But what are you doing down there? So, Shane, do you have Malik Willis, like at any point in time, do you think that he could end up being benched for 2 years prior to seeing a starting role?
Oh God, no. I think franchises have realized, look, the way you win a championship is either through the Rams way and hit on every fucking trade you make, or you win with a quarterback on a cheap rookie contract. And if you're not starting that rookie until year 3 of his rookie contract, you've wasted 2 years of prime real estate, prime time when you could have been.
It's never happened. I'm sure it has at some point, but I honestly couldn't name for you the last time that a quarterback taken in the top half of the first round of the draft hasn't been the starter at the start of year 2. It's been at least over 20 years. I don't even know when it happened, if ever. Like Rodgers went 24, Love went 26. Paxton Lynch went in the 20s. Like these guys that are not starting for multiple years are guys that are going in the late first. Like you might get a Mahomes situation or a Lance situation. Like that's possible. It wouldn't stun me if Malik Willis doesn't play year 1. But I also think he is going to play year 1. Because, you look at the teams that he might go to. It's like Detroit, Seattle, Carolina, Atlanta. Like all those teams suck. Maybe if the Saints trade up, that's one where he might not play year 1. But, you look at the situations where Rodgers wasn't playing or where Lance wasn't playing, Mahomes wasn't playing. Like, those were actually good teams, right? So I understand why, teams will continue with their veteran quarterback if they're contending for the playoffs. But, like, the Lions might not plan to start Malik Willis this year, but when they're 1-11, they're probably going to roll him out there. Right? Like what's at that point, what are we doing? So if I'm taking Malik, I wouldn't make a plan on meaningful production year 1. Like I certainly wouldn't expect him to start week 1 at all. But I think, if you want Malik Willis as like your second quarterback in Superflex, just go and either get whoever's the starter on his team. He'll probably be very cheap because he'll have just gotten replaced by Malik Willis, or go get like Matt Ryan, or, if you really want to spend up a little bit more, Tom Brady, someone like that to cover you for this year. And he'll be out there by 2023.
All right, so for me, I'm like I could end up with the 202 or I could end up with the 205, and it wouldn't matter to me because I still value all these guys in the same area. For you guys, you're saying that it'd be the
The 102
203.
or the 202?
I'm sorry, the 102. I apologize.
I
The
was like, did we
102
just skip
to
an
105.
hour ahead of the show here? Because
No.
we just missed 10 prospects.
The 102 to the 105 for me is about similar. I have Burks, London, and Wilson pretty much in the same tier for the most part, along with Wilson. For you guys, it's 101, 102, pretty close to the same tier. And then you have 103, 104, 105 possibly in the same tier.
I have 5 players in my next tier.
Oh, geez. Okay. So
103 to 107. Yeah.
Okay. And actually, I should add 106 in for me because I could end up with that guy and be cool with it. So we'll start out with Shane since he's the odd man out. What's your next tier looking like?
What do we pass? The 102, 103. We're in the 103 now.
Yeah, like the 103 range. Like, who's your second tier of guys?
Ken Walker, Garrett Wilson, Jamison Williams, and Jameson Williams mostly because everybody is talking about how no one knows that he's going to be an early draft pick.
I wish we had all of the rookie drafts in like October, because then I would actually have all the Jamison Williams. Like when he was first emerging and people were like, oh, I don't know, this guy might go higher than you think. And it's like, we've been on this take now for a while. Like he's going to go.
I've seen it multiple times on Twitter that, he's going to go a lot higher than any of us think.
So 2 overall, like, because that would be higher than I think.
So, for what that's worth. So that's why I'm moving him up. So I have Kenneth Walker, Garrett Wilson, and Jamison Williams in one tier.
Wait, so you have Jamison Williams in that tier, but you don't have the guy who's going to go ahead of him in the draft in that tier?
They're saying now the Falcons could look at him.
I said Garrett Wilson.
I mean, London is projected to be first wide receiver off the board.
No. Okay, but betting favorite. I'm just saying all the chatter I'm hearing from like actual football people, like
from NFL GMs. I mean, London is basically written in pen to the Jets at 10 at this point in mock drafts.
Well, there's actually Jamison Williams might go there.
He might, but he won't.
Now. Okay, well, this is what I'm just saying. All right, so yes, he's in my first tier. My next tier is probably London, Treylon, Burks. I don't fucking know.
I would suggest, Shane, you put this take on a sportsbook if you think Williams is going ahead of London, because you could still get Williams first wide receiver taken plus 450.
All right, if I can find a sportsbook that I'm not banned from, I'm definitely on. If I Venmo you $15, will you put $15 on Jameson for me?
I will. Yeah, I'll do that.
Do you have Venmo in Canada?
No, but we have PayPal.
Jesus Christ. So Jacob, you have Burks, London, Wilson, and you said Jamison Williams, right, in that tier?
Yeah, I have those 4. And in the order I would go is London first, then Wilson, then Burks, then Williams, and then Walker.
Really?
And
Burks last time we talked was 102 for you.
No, I've always had London. I've had London 1, and Burks has been second behind London, and then I've recently moved Wilson ahead of Burks. But I've been on London 1 since about January. But close. Like I have all 4 of these guys close. Williams probably like a half step behind the other 3. But I like London the most, and I like Wilson and Burks slightly less. Like it would not take much for me to trade back from London to Burks or Wilson. It would be like honestly an early third would be enough to get it done. Like that's how small of a difference I see between those 3. And Williams in that tier 2 for me. Walker's in that tier as well. I've talked about the Walker thing. I get it. Yeah, like he's going to go round 2. He's a really strong rushing prospect. I don't like the receiving aspect. I get that there's a lot of people on the film side that think he can do it. I don't know if he can do it. Maybe he can. I'm not going to say he can't. I just would prefer to have seen it. He's in that tier for me because I think like it's not going to actually happen in drafts. But if I got to the 1-7 and I'm on the clock and somehow Walker isn't gone yet, taking anyone but Walker at that point would just be hemorrhaging so much market value that it seems very silly to do. So I would probably end up trading that pick, but I don't know. I'm not sure if I'll end up with any Walker because I expect him to be the consensus 103, and he certainly won't be my 103. I think the earliest I'd consider him is the 1-6, but Walker and then those 4 top wide receivers for me, with London being the top.
Okay. For me, Jamison Williams feels like he could end up being a wind sprinter to an extent. I don't think that he does end up like that, but if he ends up in the wrong situation, such as New York, like he's like out for me. Like I don't want him if he goes to New York because he's not going to see the volume necessary, I don't believe, and he's not going to see the role that I want. So Jamison Williams for me is probably the most dependent. Meanwhile, like let's just say he hypothetically somehow, some way ends up with the Chiefs, right? Chiefs trade up, something like that. All of a sudden, like he could end up being my wide receiver one. So he's like his value is about as volatile as any other receiver out there. But as of right now, he's going to start up my third tier. So Shane, who starts out your third tier at that point? Is it going to be one of these? What was it, London that you didn't like, or was it Burks that you?
No, I like Burks, but the chatter is the NFL is not enamored with him. Like he's going to be a first rounder most likely. It's just not going to be higher than London. So probably London.
Do you care that much though between between early first or mid first and late first?
No,
I've never really put much stock in it.
No, I don't. As long as they all go in the first, I'm probably still going to take Burks. Not probably. I'm going to take Burks over London. Like there's no way that's not going to happen. Because London's, I mean, he's going to be an excellent tight end in the league. But
so what is it about London you don't like? Because he's pretty clear cut one for me, and it sounds like he's 4 for you. What is it about London you don't like?
Look, so I'm just a simple man. Scott Barrett tweeted out his the 5 highest contested catch rate of receivers in college over whatever the last period, and it was however many years. It was like N'Keal Harry, JJ Arcega-Whiteside, some other douchebag that was awful, some other trash can, and Drake London. Now, I'll preface that he did say that in watching the tape, it didn't look like London was getting open.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like he was saying it wasn't that London wasn't getting open. So, but I don't know. I just, anyone that can't separate, I just feel like he can't separate. I could be wrong.
I was just rewatching the Notre Dame game, right? Mm-hmm. And he was like the second read for whatever reason on almost every single play. But the thing was, he was wide open on every single play. It was like, I mean, he's Slovis is going through his reads. First off, it's a play action fake on half his plays where he ends up seeing him. But then he goes through one read, and then it's his second read, and it's like, dude, he was open 5 steps ago. Like it wasn't his fault that it was actually getting targeted, while he was covered because he was open. If he would have been the first read every single time, whether there was a play action fake or not, probably would have needed the play action because it does take him a little bit to get off the line. But I mean, I kind of like him as a big slot receiver, to be honest with you. I mean, he could end up playing that role, and he could end up beating out these linebackers and these safeties to where he could see 100 targets in his rookie year. Jacob, I know you did a post about it.
Yeah.
They got a little bit of hate from it, but tell us your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I did a big thread basically because I really hated that Scott Barrett tweet. I think it's bad. And I love Scott, and it's not just Scott that does this. I've been seeing this contested catch percentage, and I have just a major issue with the methodology of it. So I actually I'm pretty open-minded to the idea that contested catches are less translatable to the NFL than non-contested. I'm actually open-minded to that. I don't know for sure that it matters. I think there's some noise to it, but I'm open-minded to that. My issue is when we use it like percentage, right? So when it says, okay, over X percent is the red flag, because to me, that doesn't take into account how we judge wide receivers normally. Okay, if 25% of London's contested catches versus 25% under, what does that actually mean? London just had so many more catches than everybody else. Mm-hmm. So to me, if you're going to have the issue with the contested, what I would rather you do methodologically, if you're going to say contested catches are worth less, just eliminate those or weight them down to 50% or whatever else you think is appropriate. And then look at the whole profile compared to everybody else. Because most of the wide receivers that have popped up high on that list that have failed are barely clearing thresholds and are very reliant on contested catches to hit those thresholds.
Yeah.
London is destroying thresholds. So if you, even if you took away all of his contested catches last year, he still would have had over 8 catches per game. I understand he also got a lot of work on screens and stuff too, but I guess where I don't have the concerns is, first of all, that issue with the methodology of it. Second of all, just based on the fact that most of these players who have been the contested catch issues, it's there are other issues. And the contested catch issue might be why they have other issues. Harry being an exception, who really was a strong prospect, got the round 1 capital.
Yeah.
But Rager, inconsistent producer. One really strong year in year 2. Inconsistent, though. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, Denzel Mims were like senior declarers who didn't do anything till their last year. Like maybe that's why they didn't do anything until they were bigger than everybody because they can't separate. But we should have not liked them for other reasons. Tylan Wallace was a guy on that list. Hakeem Butler was a guy on that list. Maybe that's why they fell to round 4 of the draft, right?
They also struggle with drops in college, although drops don't matter.
Right, like London is not going to fall to round 4 of the draft. He's gonna be drafted in the first round of the draft, I think, quite highly. To me, that's the NFL saying we don't care. I mean, Matt Harmon's reception perception has London as a top 3 wide receiver in the class in contention for wide receiver 1. Like I'm just not concerned about the separation thing at all.
Where do you have the fantasy outcomes of the reception perception?
Well, no, but you don't have the fantasy. I mean, the fantasy outcomes, it's like, to me, but there's no fantasy outcomes tied to separation anyway.
Dude, he thought you were attacking him.
Route running?
No, I wasn't attacking him. I was
I just said that's how he thought. That's what he thought.
Okay.
I thought you were
no, so here's the thing. So let me say
I guess my thing is like, if you just look across the board, to me, London profile is great. And then people are like, oh, but he can't separate. But it's like, that seems kind of descriptive. But then there's other descriptive things that say he separates fine.
So I don't hate London. Let's put that out there, right? I have degrees of who I like.
You hate him. You hate him personally.
I like Treylon Burks better because Treylon Burks is a much better football player, or a better football player, I should say. He's got all this shit you just talked about. He met all those thresholds too. The only thing people don't like him is because he didn't run a 4.4 at the fucking combine when no one should have thought that he would. I mean, but that's just me. Again, they're all going to be first round wide receiver draft picks. I'm going to be drafting all these guys. Like, I'm just going to be drafting every one of them. I'm not going to make the mistake of drafting Isaiah Spiller, who got drafted in the 3rd or 4th round because I like his landing spot over a first round wide receiver. Like, I'm just not, because, like, unless it's Henry Ruggs or Jalen Reagor, like a round 1 wide receiver it's a good chance they're going to hit. So I'm going to bet on the NFL. Well, you're wrong. I'm going to bet on the NFL because you're wrong. The NFL. I'm going to bet on the NFL. Look, they're going to give these guys first round draft capital, which means they're going to get multiple chances to fail before they give up on them. And they're going to. So I'm just either way. I'm going to be. I don't know what I'm saying.
I have the Jets going overhead in my house right now, so I put myself on mute because I had Jets going overhead, and I've been making comments, and nobody's responding to my comments for like the past 10 minutes. And I was like, what the hell is going on? Like, why are they just passing me over? This is so confusing. All right.
So, for the record, I like Burks too. My only issue with Burks, why he's 3, is not because of the 4. Well, I guess it is a little bit of 40 time. It's just his usage was so gadgety. Like he's never really dominated as a full-time outside wide receiver. He played a lot in the slot. He got backfield usage. A lot of stuff was schemed up. And I wouldn't really care about that if he came out and was an elite athlete, because it's like, of course they'd want to scheme a bunch of gadgety touches for this elite athlete. But now since he's just like a regular athlete, I still love him. Like, I'm still going to take him at the 1.5, and I still will probably intersperse him even ahead of Wilson or London if I have to make sure I get shares. But I don't know. I'm a little bit more hesitant. I would rather take Wilson or London, who I think have similarly strong statistical profiles, but did it like as normal wide receivers.
All right, so let's hop on to this next tier, right? Where we have, for me, Jamison Williams, which is still in y'all's tiers. But we have probably Chris Olave is one of them. Sky Moore is another one. How many guys end up in this tier? Probably Isaiah Spiller for some. Like, this is the Michael Carter tier from 2022 or 2021.
No, it's higher than that. It's better than that. But what I'll say is, when we get to the Chris Olave tier is where I'm like, all right, I'm just going to trade.
Aren't we already there? I mean, who else is going ahead of Chris Olave?
I take George Pickens in front of him when he gets drafted in the first round.
So you have a different tier. You have Olave in like your 4th tier.
You have very small tiers, Shane.
3rd tier.
We're already through 4 of your tiers with 7 players.
He's in my 4.5 tier.
This would be your 5th tier, I think.
I have no idea how many tiers.
For the record, I'm on tier 2 right now.
There's more than 2 tiers. I don't know how many tiers I have.
I'll
say
3.
This. This is how it breaks in my head.
Tier 3.
Chris Olave is not getting drafted by me. When we get to the Chris Olave part of the draft, I'm going, all right, are Jahan Dotson and George Pickens still on the board? Because I'm just going to trade back if I can, God willing. And I'm going to draft one of
them. Why Dotson over
round?
Olave? Because to me, like, all the red flags that Olave has, Dotson has those, but he's just a little bit worse.
No, he's not. He's better.
What is he better at? You just been spending too much time with Addison. Who, like, I'm pretty sure is related to Jahan Dotson.
I don't like Chris Olave even a little bit. He's just this. Look, he was okay in college, and then as soon as he had any real competition, he's decided that he was just going to be okay. Like, he never broke out. I don't want to hear about.
He broke out year 2.
No, I didn't mean it like that. I'm sorry, but he never took the next step. Right? He's okay. He's good. He's good.
So I have Jamison Williams and Olave in the same tier. I know that that's not the case for you, Jacob, but who's in the tier with you and Olave?
Yeah, so this next tier, this is super flex, right?
Yeah, super flex.
Okay, so this next tier So this next tier is the 2 other quarterbacks who I expect to go round 1. So Kenny Pickett and Desmond Ritter. Kenny Pickett, who I don't like, but I think that every quarterback who goes round 1 of the NFL draft deserves to be a round 1 rookie pick in Superflex, even if I totally hate them, and I totally hate Kenny Pickett. And then Desmond Ritter, who, if he goes like top 10 somehow, which I don't expect to happen, he'll join like my first tier, honestly, because he runs a lot, and I like that. But where I expect him to go is probably like mid to late first. I think he'll be in this tier. And then the wide receivers for me in here would be Sky Moore first, then Olave, and then Pickens.
So Sky Moore above Olave.
Yeah, I love Sky Moore. I've done actually pretty long threads on both Moore and Olave, not like as much individually, but more in the context of their kind of profile and similar profiles we've seen over the last 10 years. And I really liked Sky Moore. Basically, my question coming into this process was like, okay, his production's obviously off the charts, but he comes from this tiny ass little school, Western Michigan. So how much should we discount his production? And then I had this interesting conversation with Alfred Fernandez on the Full Tilt Dynasty show, where he was talking about, group of 5 hit rates and those being lower. And one thing that we both talked about was the fact that, most of these guys are senior declares. And we know that there's issues with senior declare wide receivers in the first 2 days of the draft. Historically, analytically, they don't perform as well. And I went back, the last 10 draft classes, the only 3-year college players who were drafted day 1 or day 2 from the group of 5 were Devontae Adams and Sky Moore. And I'm not saying that means Sky Moore is a 1-for-1 comp to Devontae Adams.
You're comp to Devontae Adams to Sky Moore.
It's so rare that one of these group of 5 players actually profiles the way Sky Moore does. Like, most of them are later breakouts or late declares, even if they do break out early. That I just think I'm not really that worried about the group of 5 thing, because I think you already have to be so impressive to get to the point where he's already at and to have this profile that he has, that I don't really want to hold it against him. And so I'm pretty much just ranking his profile as though it was his profile. And that means he ends up being my wide receiver 5 in this class, just ahead of Olave. And I did a thing on Olave too. Basically, every first round wide receiver drafted in the last 10 years that was a senior declare has been ass. The only 2 that have even hit a top 24 season over the last 10 years are Devontae Parker and Mike Williams, and they didn't hit top 24 until like year 5. Maybe Devontae Smith, Brandon Ayuk, Kadarius Toney, maybe they joined that group. Those look like decent bets too, but that's not good. The upside is I think Olave is the second or third best prospect amongst all these guys, and there's 17 of them now total once we include Olave and Dotson in. He's the only one. Only him and Corey Davis have 2 seasons above 2.5 yards per team pass attempt in their first 3 seasons. I really love that stat for Olave. And so I think that there's hope for him for sure, but I'm just not sure I see the ceiling, which is a really long way of basically saying the same thing that Shane said.
Shane, I swear to God, giving Shane access to the back channels of this when I was having issues, it was the worst idea I've ever had.
Wow, what's happening right now?
You don't even want to see it. It's just complete mayhem back here backstage. Shane, stop it. All right. Oh, so let's go ahead and Shane, would you cut Shane? If you don't stop pressing buttons, we're gonna have issues. Worst idea ever. So when it comes to Olave, like, I think there's a chance the NFL likes him more than Sky Moore. I mean, I saw certain mocks going on that. Yeah, but I saw certain mocks where like he could go, 11 to Washington, 10 to the Jets. And I think that is a realistic possibility, which if that was the case, I don't really like or love either of those spots, but that's what would make me want to take, Olave over Sky Moore.
Yeah, I'll be clear. If Sky Moore goes round 2 and Olave goes round 1, I'm taking Sky Moore over Olave. That's what I expect to happen. Like, I expect Sky to go round 2. I expect Olave to go round 1. And
even
my
early round 1?
I mean, early to me would be like top 10. That would really surprise me. I think he'll go in the teens somewhere in the early, like somewhere between 11 and 20, I think, for Olave. Like, I guess if, like, they're still in the same tier. So if like, say Olave somehow went to like the Packers or the Chiefs and Sky Moore went like round 2 to just some disgustingly bad landing spot, then I would change my mind on that. But I'm pretty content taking like round 2 early declare super producer over round 1 senior declare. So I'm okay with that bet, honestly. And David Bell, Dave, I mean, look, if the NFL drafts him, I will love him. I don't think that they will draft him as highly as you want them to.
5th round, Jameson Crowder draft capital. So let's go to George Pickens because Shane brought him up, right?
4th. How dare you?
Oh, it was 4th. You're right. So
that's my Wan'Dale Robinson comp right there.
So let's go ahead and bring on George Pickens, right? Because Shane brought him up earlier.
Yeah, coming on the show.
Don't even start with me. I went 10 minutes on.
I'm sorry to have you at wide receiver 7, George. I'll move you to wide receiver 1. I will draft George Pickens in every league if he comes on the show.
So George Pickens, we'll start out with Jacob because I want to lead into this with Shane. Okay. Is he still in that same tier with Olave, Sky Moore?
Yeah, he is. He's in that tier. It's a 3-person tier. Moore, Olave, Pickens. Man, Pickens is he's the toughest eval for me in this class. Like, his first year is everything we want to see out of a first year. 5-star recruit, came out, dominated year 1 at that threshold. I put this out on Twitter and 70% of people got it right. But I was really curious to see if people actually realized Pickens tore his ACL after his second year, not after his first year, because I feel like the ACL is like covered up any other issues in his profile. People are like, he was awesome, and then he tore his ACL. And it's like, no, between that, he actually was just bad at his second year. And that's an issue to me. I think most likely if he had not torn his ACL, he would have played this year. He would have been probably pretty good, and I wouldn't have any concerns. But maybe not. As Shane said, maybe. So my concerns with him is not really the ACL. My concern with him primarily is that he has 0 seasons of 2 yards per team pass attempt or better, 0 seasons with a 20% target share or better. And while his freshman season was fantastic in the context of freshman seasons, it's not really what you want to see in the context of best seasons. And so I understand that, had injuries not come into the picture, maybe we wouldn't have to do this projecting, but we really have to project that he would have improved past his freshman year and then past his sophomore year, which was actually a decline from his freshman year, in order for us to be really happy about drafting him as a borderline top 5 wide receiver. So yeah, I think that like people have him wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. I think that's a little bit banana land to me. I think it's possible. I think his ceiling is immense, and it would not shock me if he is viewed as a top 3 wide receiver in this class a year or 2 from now. But I think that the risk is that he's not very good.
Shane, why is George Pickens in a completely separate tier than Olave for you?
Again, it's not that he's in. See, I draft differently than you draft, right? Like, there's certain players that are just, I'm not going to pay that cost for him, right? Who can I get cheaper? I'm going to get George Pickens cheaper than Chris Olave. I don't have a ton of faith in Chris Olave. I'm not saying that I have like this George Pickens is going to be a slam dunk. Everything Jacob just said is true. He crushed in his what do you call that, freshman season, broke out.
Dave loves the early breakout age, by the way. Dave's out here tossing out Bell and Justin Ross. Like, Dave is out here looking at his 2020 Devy team.
I mean, look, if you look at Bell just from a production standpoint and nothing else, he's a first round draft pick. He's probably the wide receiver 1 of the class. Unfortunately, he runs like me, and jumps like me, and cuts like me. Like,
didn't Cooper Kupp when he first entered the league?
Well, yeah. And Michael Thomas wasn't especially athletic. So, I mean, again, people have pointed out Keenan Allen wasn't especially athletic. Jarvis Landry, obviously.
Even Devontae Adams wasn't crazy.
Yeah, these aren't all the same type of players. But we'll see how the NFL feels. If David Bell gets day 2 draft capital and not day 2, round 2 draft capital, well, then I'm going to be a lot more interested in him than I am right now.
So Bell is Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen, and Cooper Kupp combined.
Yeah, basically, depending on landing spot.
Yeah, depending on landing spot. depending on who's the quarterback. So wait, if David Bell does go round 2, is he in the tier with Pickens and that area of players for you?
Me.
I mean, that's definitely gonna push him up. This is a really good class to be drafting wide receivers. I'll say that. This is a really good class to have like just multiple picks from like 107 to like 205. Because we're not gonna get all these wide receivers, right? There's no way it's gonna happen because there's gonna be 15 of them drafted in the first 2 fucking rounds, and not all 15 of them can hit because that's not how football works. So I'm not afraid to say that we're going to be so wrong on this. At least I will. I'll admit that I'll be wrong on this.
For sure.
We're going to nail every pick.
We're going to look back in 3 years, and it's going to be like Sky Moore was the wide receiver 1 of the class, and Wan'Dale Robinson was the wide receiver 2 somehow, or Wandale, whatever his name is.
Wandale, yeah.
No, I like Pickens' size, speed. He broke out young. I was looking at his dominator rating on DLF. It has to be wrong because they got him exceeding threshold baseline regression 2 years, but that can't be right because everything else is just below par. And like Jacob said, yeah, everyone blames the ACL, but they forget like he actually played a year before the ACL. Like the ACL was last year, dude. That's what happened last year. But he's still just
great freshman year, not good sophomore year, unknown third year.
He's that physically imposing, like he's that physical specimen that we want at the wide receiver position. So we're always going to give him a little more leeway. If he was the same size as Sky Moore, if he was the same size as Chris Olave, he'd be a lot lower on this totem pole. And I have that bias too, and I like tall, fast wide receivers. It's just going to be my thing. Yeah.
So, all right, let's talk about where Isaiah Spiller comes in, right? I don't want to go like too much tier by tier and player by player. So let's make a jump because
sorry,
Jacob,
should we let him run in? We can wait another 30 minutes.
Really? Wait, no, what?
He's slow. He's very slow.
No, I was making a joke. You're saying let's see where he comes in. I was like,
it hit me
wait,
right.
It's gonna take him a while to come in. He's very slow.
It hit me right, right as Shane was saying, "Oh no, that's not what it means." Oh my God, I'm trying to compartmentalize and you guys are not helping. All right, so yes, Isaiah Spiller is slow as shit. It's bad. His agent said that he wasn't going to run
Not
again.
after you've had a burrito. Then shit's pretty fast.
Yeah, then shit's pretty fast. Oh, I missed your puns. So Isaiah Spiller, though, like where does he fall into your projections? Everybody thinks that the speed that he ran was a lie. Like, where does he possibly land? And are you trying to drive down his value so you can have a share of him in the 3rd round? Because that's where it feels like it's going at this point.
He's
sorry. I'm just so fired up.
Kidding about 3rd round, but
I bet this big Spurs parlay, and I need Devin Vassell to go over 2.5 threes, and he's already got 2 in the first 5 minutes. So that's just awesome for me. What a start to my day. Anyway,
yeah, talk about
Isaiah Spiller. Yeah. He's still my RB3 in the class. I'm fine. I'm fine with
Shane. Chill.
I'm fine with Isaiah Spiller at RB3. I was like until very recently was still trying to keep the candle out for Isaiah Spiller as my RB2, and then I just had to go into a cave and contemplate it. And I was like, no, I can't do this anymore. I have to just move Walker to RB2. I think Spiller's fine. I think the concern now is that he might not even get drafted in round 2, right? So if he gets drafted in round 2, he would actually still be in that tier with all the guys we just talked about, Olave and Pickens and all those guys. But if he slides into round 3, like that's when it kind of becomes landing spot dependent. And then it's kind of scary because I don't ever draft the running backs that go in round 3 and round 4, like almost ever, because either they get drafted to spots where you become like a direct backup. Yeah, I mean, I'm still like 4 spots below consensus in the overall rankings, Dave, but I'm okay
talking about Kenneth Walker, by the way.
Yeah. So like, it's just hard for me to ever draft a running back that goes in round 3 or round 4 because like what happens? Either he goes to like say, I don't know, what's an example? Tennessee to be a direct backup. It's like, well, now I'm not excited about drafting you. I might draft you in round 3, I guess. That's fine. Or if he goes to like, I don't know, the Texans and everyone's like, oh my God, he's going to get all the touches. It's like, well, like if you go in round 3 or round 4, like maybe you'll get all the touches, or maybe you're Trey Sermon, or maybe you're Zach Moss. Like that's where when shitty running backs go to good landing spots in round 3 and round 4, they get overdrafted. So I don't know. I think the only way I end up drafting him is if he goes to a bad landing spot and I can get him really cheap. I think it's hard for me to envision drafting any of these guys, Spiller, Brian Robinson, Zamir White, etc., in like round 3, round 4. It's kind of gross.
So when it comes to like the second round, right? So that's pretty much what we're approaching is like, mid to early second round. I'll start with Shane on this. Are you taking a shot on one of these running backs that would get drafted in the 3rd or 4th round, or are you taking a shot on quarterback like Matt Corral?
Matt Corral's. So here's the thing. So these quarterbacks are going to go off the board in the 1st round because Matt Corral's going to get drafted in the 1st. Desmond Ritter's probably going to get drafted in the 1st. Kenny Pickett and Malik Willis, I think it's clear they're going in the 1st. And Sam Howell might go in the 1st. Like there might end up being 5 quarterbacks in the 1st round, even though we hate the class because, look, quarterbacks are scarce, right? Good ones, franchise ones. Second round, after that little tier of wide receivers that we have all bunched together, then I'm looking at all those running backs. Yeah. And it's going to be, all right, well, who has the best draft capital? Because that's the guy I'm going after. Is it going to be Brian Robinson? I like him as much as I like Tyler Agier, who I like as much as Isaiah. I think I like Isaiah Spiller more than those guys, just flat out. But if the NFL, again, tells us that he's a 3rd or 4th rounder, I'm going to like him less. Like those running backs, just the bunch of them, Jerome Ford, like all of them, Damian Pierce, they're all in this bucket of who's got the best draft capital, because that's probably who I'm leaning towards.
Yeah, there's only one guy that I really like that I'm actually willing to chase up the board, and that would be Rachaad White. That's just but I don't know. We'll see. I mean, if he goes around, his ADP has been climbing in the mock drafts to the point where he's right at the breaking point now to end round 3, round 4. If he goes round 4, then I don't know if I'm going to draft him because I feel like fantasy Twitter is going to still have a lot of attachment to him. That's probably unwarranted. But if you can sneak into the back around 3, he's like the one guy I'm willing to spend my early 2nd round picks on. He just checks so many boxes for me. He's got the size, 6 feet, 214. He has the pass catching up over an 18% target share last year at Arizona State. Was PFF's highest graded receiving back last year in college. And then he's got the athleticism. He ran, I believe, a 4.43 40, jumped out of the gym. So he's got that real high upside peripheral profile. And then basically the NFL just has to tell us, like, can he play running back? Because to me, like, if he goes round 4, the NFL is aware of his production. They're aware of his receiving chops. They're aware of his athleticism. And if they don't take him till round 4, they're basically saying, no, this guy just can't, I don't know, whatever it is. Can't read blocks. He can't figure it out. He can't play the position of running back. And I just have to believe them, I think, at that point. Otherwise, you end up Christine Michaeling yourself for eternity, just thinking that the NFL's wrong. But if someone takes him round 3 or even potentially round 2, like I'd be pretty excited about that profile. He would get into the mix for sure as my 3rd running back in the class, maybe even a little higher.
So I actually only have like these 3 running backs in a tier. And honestly, it's just because I feel like, we have the talent with Rachaad White, which you mentioned, Isaiah Spiller, which you mentioned, and then Brian Robinson, who, I don't love, but I think the NFL is going to love. And I think he's going to end up I think he's going to end up in a starting role at some point. Like he could end up in a starting role with the Eagles. He could end up in a starting role with possibly the Bills, somebody like that. Even Atlanta makes a lot of sense as to like why he would end up there. So I have an attachment to those 3 guys in the early 2nd round or mid to early 2nd round. But I mean, outside of that, I don't think I'd be willing to take a running back until the 3rd round because, like you brought up, Jacob, they're all in the same kind of like, just kind of posh of, running backs that will end up in with roles. You'll see pass catching guys. You'll see, goal line guys. So I don't think that there's a single other running back that I would take, even with 3rd round capital, in the 2nd round of dynasty drafts. But let's go ahead and hop in. Oh, go ahead. What'd you have to add?
I was just gonna say, like, I think for me, it's deep enough at wide receiver, like Shane was saying. I'm still gonna be spending most of my seconds, I think, on wide receivers. And then running back is really deep, but it's deep on like day 3. Like, I just think that there's like 10, 12 guys, and you kind of pick your archetype. Like, do you want sort of the blasé workhorse type guys like the Brian Robinson, Zamir White, where it's like, okay, I can see this guy being the early down pounder? Or do you want like your Tyler Beatty, Kyren Williams, James Cook, like type satellite backs? And I think you kind of have to pick what archetype you want, and then you just pick whatever your favorite guys are and you take some darts. But to me, there's just so many dudes that are going to end up on NFL teams and then just sort of see what happens, that I'm just going to spend all my round 3 and round 4 picks on like running back dart throws. And I just hope that I either get really lucky and hit on like an Elijah Mitchell, or even if you don't, like, even if you hit on like a Ramondre Stevenson in the 3rd round or 4th round, that's a huge value win, right? Like, you can trade Ramondre Stevenson today for an earlier mid-2nd round pick. And then you just turn your late 3rd into a mid-2nd the following year. That's a win. And it's just way easier to do that at running back than wide receiver, because all you don't need to do all that much. You really just need like either to land on a favorable depth chart, someone to get hurt in front of you. Like, look at Khalil Herbert, another example, right? Like, it's everybody wants to hit on Elijah Mitchell, but Khalil Herbert and Ramondre Stevenson are both worth considerably more than you paid for them. And there's plenty of guys that I think are at least that caliber of prospect that you can get. I just want to take darts and then see, who hits. But I will say, I think you have a better shot of doing that if you take the guys with actual size to be starting running backs. Like, I think it's harder to hit that. Like, if Elijah Mitchell's the home run and, like a double is Ramondre Stevenson, like, I think like a Nyheim Hines type is more of a single. And I think I'm going to be taking less of the James Cook, Tyler Beatty, Kyren Williams, Tyler Goodson archetype, and more of the Tyler Algier, Brian Robinson, Kevin Harris, Keontae Ingram archetype.
Dude, Tyler Algier is really, really growing on me at this point. Just more and more film I watch. And I know that, he's not a great prospect, but I do realize that he has the most yards after contact of anybody right now in the past 2 seasons.
Who does?
Tyler Algier. He has the most yards after contact of any running back over the past 2 seasons. Lesser.
He's massive.
Yeah, he's large.
Could be the AJ Dillon.
He can't get away from people.
Yeah.
I like him fine. It's just,
Yeah, I do like him moving forward. So, Shane, when it comes to the late 2nd round, right? Let's just say that the majority of the wide receivers that you like are off the board. Is there any running back that you'd like to take a shot on? Because normally I'm like, hey, which late round guy would you take in the 24th round of a mock draft or of a dynasty startup? And you're like, nothing. I just want rookies. Just give me shots on rookies. Even if I don't know who they are, just give me shots on rookies. So which rookie are you looking at towards the beginning of the 3rd round or so that you would take a shot on? That would be at the running back or tight end position even.
I understand the question.
I feel like I have to make sure that I explain it.
No. I mean, so the running backs are like Jerome Ford, Kevin Harris, Damian Pierce, although I think he's going to probably go off the board after the draft. Before that, Pierre Strong, super fast. Keontae Ingram is another guy. I think I can get him a little later, though. Wide receivers, John Mechie.
Kind of like Mechie.
They held off the board for the.
Everyone can't be off the board. That's the thing, right? Like,
I think wide receivers will be.
Maybe.
I think to me.
Okay.
But it depends. It depends on how attractive the landing spots are, right? Like,
yeah.
What if Zamir White goes round 5?
Yeah.
He's the mid-2nd round. What if all of a sudden you're John Mechie's and Khalil Shakir's and Wan'Dale Robinson's and Alec Pierce's, all these guys down the board a little bit?
No, 100%. I'm more looking, for those round guys such as, even like the Calvin Austins who performed insanely well. The Pierces who
are talking about guys. Tyler Goodson.
Kyren Williams is a great friend.
No, Kyren Williams.
Jeremy Ruckert. Max Borghi.
Are you just like listing off names? Where are you finding these names?
My most recent rookie draft.
we're really close to creative players at this point.
Yeah, I mean, the beginning of the third round is not just throwing out names out there.
I like the tight ends.
Guys.
I like.
I know you like
Pride.
Shaker. I know you like Shaker.
Shakir.
Shakir.
No, it was Shaker according to Shane last time.
I
Wait,
referred to him
Khalil
as
Shaker. Is that what he was saying? Khalil Shaker.
It's so
Yeah.
awesome.
I actually
It was
love
my favorite
Khalil
part of last
Shakir.
week's episode.
Khalil Shakir is actually sitting right now as my wide receiver 10 in the class.
The class is deep in running back and wide receivers that are going to be. I don't want to say good. That's not the word I'm looking for. But there's going to be guys.
Serviceable?
There's going to be guys you just take shots on there at those two positions.
Right.
I guess you could take a shot on Carson Strong if you really wanted to, but I wouldn't.
But here's what you gotta think, right? Like some of these guys, I think sometimes you'll see like, okay, what is the ceiling of a Khalil Shakir? Probably not high, but what is Khalil Shakir like? As long as once you get into the late 2 and into the third, like you really want to just get NFL players, because once a guy can stick as an NFL player, you're gonna find some sell window somewhere, right? Like it's just like if Khalil Shakir comes out and he's a professional wide receiver and he can carve out like an 18% target share as the wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3 on a decent offense, well, then one of these games in his rookie year, he's going to have 4 catches for 100 yards at a touchdown, and some idiot in your league is going to be like, oh my God, that's the next breakout star. And then all of a sudden,
Davis.
Right. And then all of a sudden you end up getting, maybe you get an early second. And so that early third you spent on Khalil Shaker is turned into an early second.
A regular thing for us.
So,
that has to be.
Yeah, I really, yeah. So I don't know. I think that like it's easy to get depressed about this class, but we really don't know. And I mean, like the ceiling's always going to be higher in the unknown. Like there's running backs and wide receivers every year that we think have pretty garbage profiles that turn into stars that we wouldn't have expected. Like there's going to be 1 or 2 at least.
Dude, a bunch of these guys we're going to talk ourselves into is why they can hit. And what you're going to remember is, hey, you remember that guy I said the same thing about last year? No, because he didn't hit, so you're not going to remember him. Like we're going to talk ourselves into a bunch of these guys. Here's the truth: 3rd round and 4th round rookie draft picks, rookie fantasy, probably aren't going to hit. They're just not. So whatever, shoot for upside. 2nd round picks usually not going to hit that much either. Like running backs is where I'm going to lean in the second. They tend to hit better, but 3rd and 4th round, look. Honestly, I can't criticize any draft pick you make in the 3rd and 4th round. Literally none. You could give me, as long as you have any basis or reasoning of why you did it. Okay, you drafted a bunch of running backs because you think you could start one of them in week 17. Sure. You drafted a wide receiver because you think he's going to be a camp star and you're going to get able to flip him. Yeah, you're probably right. You know what I mean? Like there's literally nothing you could do outside of drafting an IDP player that I would go, well, that's kind of crazy.
Oh, I know what you could do that's bad. There's only one thing you can do that's bad. You take 2 of your late thirds and you trade up for your guy in the early 3rd.
Oh, yeah. Don't do that.
It's actually a good point.
Yeah.
Just that's the biggest thing. Like I would just say, like once you get into the 3rd, like it's all such a shit show. Like if as soon as you get on the clock in the 3rd, you should just immediately try to trade for like a later 3rd and a future 3rd. Just every time. Just because it really like you don't. If you think you have a guy, you don't have a guy. And the thing is that everyone's guy is different. So the guy that you want to take at 3.5, he might be able to get at 3.10. Anyway, like everybody has their own guy. So like I would just say, like if you're on the clock, especially in these slow drafts, take your time and see, because maybe you move your 3.5 for the 3.10 and someone's 2024 3rd. Like, yes, thank you, please. And then you're like the gap in probability to hit is real flat once you get into the 3rd round.
But you increase value every time, and then you can trade up for a 3rd at some point, when you have multiple 3rds.
No, never trade up for a 3rd. You can actually, if you get all those 3rds, you can add all those
You
shitty
can't tell me
thirds
nothing.
to
I
the second and maybe
traded
get a
up,
first.
and I drafted Joshua Kelly at the early 3rd round.
Yeah. 3rd round draft picks,
Who's
3rd
bad?
round draft picks, you should never be made. They should be traded. Like those are grease to facilitate trades. That's all.
We're grease to throw into trades, right? That's what I've always been told.
That's what I
You
just said.
always throw in a
Yeah, you throw
third,
in a
but
third.
on the
Or you
but
ask
ask
for
for a
it.
3rd. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, you
because
ask for
everyone
a third, you give a third.
Yeah, it's honestly,
It's like a
thirds
reach
just
round.
get passed around. That's it.
Do you ever
that's,
have those?
That's all they
like,
are.
Maybe this is just a Canada thing, but do you ever see like those jars in in stores and stuff
Yeah.
where it's like take a
Oh,
penny, leave
God.
a penny?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so it's
not
just like kind of a nice thing. It's like if you need a penny, you can take a penny. If you don't want, you just leave a penny. That's third round picks. Take a third, leave a third.
Dude, not to me. I'm the captain of third round picks.
Okay,
So
well,
with
you're
that
taking
being
a third.
said,
You're
I'm
taking
taking
third.
I'm taking third. I'm
Of
taking a Dutch rudder every
you
time.
love third round picks because you then how would you ever not have all these irrelevant wide receivers to talk up on our show if you don't draft them all in the third round?
Yeah, those
Like,
all come in the fourth and fifth.
Today's Donovan Peoples-Jones is going to be like when
I
it's
don't have anybody
2023 on this
for
show,
this
and you're like,
And-
guys, Alec Pierce had a yards per target
do
of
it.
12 on 34 targets. Like,
Shane's about to enter broadcast mid conversation, and I'm getting
it's
there.
gonna
Shane.
happen. Like when one of these in 2023, Calvin Austin will have 34 targets for 402 yards on 30% of the routes, and Chase will be like, what do you think this move means for Calvin Austin? Because if he can get a full-time role in this offense with this scheme, all of a sudden, like, now we could have wide receiver 2 upside. Is that a guy that you want to go send offers for right now? And then Shane will get mad and threaten to leave the show.
No. Shane will say, "Who are you talking about? Wait, who is that? Who is that?" And then after me repeating that same exact sentence you just said like 10 times over the course of 5 episodes, that's when he'll threaten to leave.
I'm already tired of hearing about Alec Pierce too, because he's another guy
He
who people are
sucks.
talking about, but it's like, oh,
No, no.
I'm like, oh, dude,
That's next
whatever.
Christian, or that's next Cooper Cup.
Alec Pierce?
Yeah.
That guy, like,
Just kidding.
I don't know what is happening with him, man. Pretty much every wide receiver in this class, like, I'm really trying to be probabilistic. Like, even guys that I'm way low on. Like, I'm low on Christian Watson, but I'm like, I can sort of see the case if you really squint for it. I do not get the Alec Pierce thing at all. Like, it's the profile looks bad, which means he'll probably make the Hall of Fame. So
There's certain things we're always going to fall in love with, like, right?
yeah,
He's physically he's gifted, right?
Did mention Khalil Shakir.
He's physically gifted, right? And he's white. So whenever there's a physically
He's
gifted,
the first man in, last man out.
yeah. So whenever there's a physically gifted white dude, we're all like, wait, there can be athletic white people. So yeah,
the Mike Bibby corollary.
Yeah, he must be he's going to be a great wide receiver in the pros.
So white
He's
chocolate.
basically Jordy Nelson. That's all we remember. You know what I mean? We remember Jordy Nelson, Cooper Cup.
I've
We don't
seen that
remember all the
by way.
flame outs.
People have comped him to Jordy Nelson repeatedly.
Yeah, because he's white and he's
I know.
athletic. That's it.
All right,
That's all it
let's get
takes.
out of here. Shane's tired. Make sure you guys go subscribe to our YouTube channel before y'all get out of here. Just hit that subscribe button.
Do you
hit
think
like.
anyone's ever
leave a
made
comment.
a comp for a white player that isn't another white player? Have you ever seen one? Because I've never seen
Yeah,
one.
I've purposely done it. Like I purposely do it. Like when I'm doing rookie
For the
profiles,
offensive
like
line. I've done it for the offensive line.
yeah,
I feel like you could just comp. I feel like you could just comp all
Oh.
white wide receivers to Jacoby Myers because he's basically a white wide receiver in his place.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, that's true. And then I've also done a few
Or
for
Keenan
for
Allen.
Byron Leftwich
Oh.
over the course with his wind
Okay.
up, with his long delivery time. Who the hell did I do that with? I don't remember.
All
But
right.
anyways, let's
So
get out of
make
here.
sure
Shane.
You can find me at Dynasty Trades HQ podcast, Dynasty Trades in 5 YouTube, Manic and Chill on the YouTubes on the DLF. We've decided to release a quarterly episode. Check out the DLF Dynasty Draft Guide and check me out at where am I at Shane is the Worst on the Twitters, and I'm going to be dropping an article soon that I just have to write. That's all for Trophy Smack.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, someone named Winston Todd on Twitter just said Alec Pierce is nearly exact replica of Treylon Burks. The only difference is he's actually athletic, as he proved at the NFL Combine. Burks proved that he simply doesn't have the speed to outrun NFL athletes and possibly even linebackers. So, anyway, there you go. Alec Pierce, wide receiver 1.
All right, go check out trophysmack.com. Of course, use promo code CIRCLE when you guys get a trophy, and you end up getting something like this.
Oh, yeah.
This thing is crazy. It's what I won for the Fantasy Intervention League because both y'all suck, and
So
neither one of you
went
guys.
and bought out a trophy for yourself.
I didn't intend that. It was supposed to go to the winner, but I ended up winning. So
I don't know. Like, I didn't know it was possible to like have winning a fantasy league be sad, but that's pretty sad that you like won a league and you're like, I'll buy myself a trophy.
I didn't want to. I didn't want to. I begged some. I was like, guys, like this is the last thing I wanted to do, but I had to get one. So
this is like when I first moved to Vancouver for my first Super Bowl, and I didn't like have friends yet because it was like COVID.
you went on a Tinder, didn't you?
No, I didn't. I just like
you went on a Tinder.
Well, I didn't like. Why would I want a Tinder during the Super Bowl? I want some like girl who's going to talk during the game to be in my vicinity. That's the last thing I want.
I just thought you just wanted a bunch of company, you know.
And then you can find Jacob at
FF_RTDB. You can find me on Tuesday nights, although due to technical difficulties, we'll be recording tomorrow night for the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast. We're continuing our rookie countdown. So if you like this rookie talk, we'll go far more in depth. Tomorrow, we got 5 more rookies on tap. We have Desmond Ritter, Isaiah Spiller, Kenneth Walker, Jamison Williams, and another guy that you'll find out tomorrow who the other guy is because I can't remember. So definitely make sure. Oh, and Chris Olave. Chris Olave is the other one. So make sure to tune in for that one. And then you can find me on Player Profiler, written work. Haven't had something in the last week, but you can find my most recent. You can always find me in the Bulletproof Discord, talking rookies, talking dynasty, talking whatever. So make sure to come and join in there if you want to.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Thanks for coming in, Jacob, this week. You know, as our special guest, since you never make it in here on a regular basis. Anyways, no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. You guys can go find my stuff over there at FF_intervention. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure y'all check out this next episode. It's going to be a fun one next week. Peace.